freedom, and a peaceful continent, this day is an opportunity to reflect on the past, the present, and of the future. Last year's summit of the EU and the African Union marked a milestone as our leaders agreed on renewing our partnership with a joint vision. And this is a partnership of and for solidarity, peace and security, sustainable economic development and prosperity for our citizens, bringing our two continents together. And this, I think, underscores the fact that we are equal partners with a reciprocal commitment based upon mutual respect and shared values. Sweden is a long-standing friend and partner to many African countries, including on your road to independence and democracy. In solidarity and out of conviction that every country and its citizens should have the right to live in freedom. Sweden provided support to liberation movements in countries such as former Rhodesia, South Africa, and Guinea-Bissau. And following independence, Swedish support continued. For example, through long-standing development cooperation with many of your countries. Our commitment to Africa has continued to grow and develop ever since. And when recalling our historical ties, I would also like to reflect on the present. Today, Sweden has embassies in 18 African countries, and 22 African countries have embassies in Stockholm. Our relations are broader than ever before. As you know, the African Union has designated 2023 as the year for accelerating the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area. Sweden is one of the many supporters and main supporters of technical assistance, contributing to expanding intra-African trade and inclusive economic growth. And across the continent, Swedish businesses provide state-of-the-art solutions in support of a green, sustainable transition. And this includes environmental-friendly transport solutions by Volvo and Scania, digital services by Ericsson, and the largest solar project in sub-Saharan Africa, in Angola, co-financed by Sweden. African entrepreneurs such as Kenyan M-Pesa, established long before our own Swish, inspire Swedish counterparts. Trade between Sweden and Africa and African countries has increased by around 35% in the last five years. Trade with some African countries now exceeds pre-pandemic levels. People-to-people ties build new bridges, as more than 1,500 university students from African countries studied in Sweden in the last year. I hope this exchange will increase even more. Sweden is a major partner in development cooperation for many African countries, making substantial difference in daily lives of citizens across the continent. And last year, Sweden provided more than 2.5 billion Swedish crowns in humanitarian assistance in response to crisis in Africa. These are just a few examples and a clear testament to our commitment to Africa. Together with the EU and other member states, we deliver on our commitments and remain a leading partner on investments, trade, development cooperation, and security. We need to listen and to learn from each other. A dialogue in which we address issues of key concern and find solutions, common solutions. A partnership built on mutual interests and shared responsibility. That is our goal. Earlier this month, we celebrated Europe Day. And just like Africa Day, this is a day to commemorate the struggle for freedom and unity. A day to celebrate peace. Right now, this peace is under threat. We have an aggressor on our doorstep. seeking to expand its territory by dominating others, by trying to impose a sphere of influence in its neighborhood and beyond. Russia actively attempts to deny Sweden the right to make its own choices. Through threats and warfare, Russia is trying to dictate the path of others. As sovereign states, none of us can accept this. Sweden, just like African countries and all countries on this globe, has the right to choose its own policies, including on security and defense. And just as Sweden stood in solidarity with your countries in the struggle for independence and democracy, we should all stand with Ukraine today. What happens in Ukraine might seem geographically distant for many of you, but Russia's war of aggression impacts all of us. Russia threatens not only our security, but the very principles of territorial integrity and sovereignty. And this disrupts global value chains and food and energy and finance systems, with dire consequences, not least for Africa. Together, we must safeguard a world order based on respect for the UN Charter. And allow me to be very clear on this. Just as we condemn Russia's war crimes in Ukraine and expresses grief over the killing of civilians, we deplore the senseless violence that innocent citizens face in some parts of Africa. The ruthless killings of more than 500 civilians in Bora, with the involvement of a so-called Wagner group, and in Boko Haram's kidnapping of young school girls, are just as despicable, horrific, and brutal as the killings of civilians or abductions of children by Russia in Ukraine. We take a principled stance in defense of international law, regardless of the geographical context. Recalling those who have made major contributions in support of a free and independent Africa, I would like to end by quoting Nelson Mandela. For to be free is not merely to cast off one's chains, but to live in a way that respects and enhances the freedom of others. May these words guide us all. I look forward to continuing our dialogue on how we together can strengthen the relations between Sweden and African countries, and how we, as partners, can contribute to protecting the freedom of others. As we look to the future, our common challenges call for common solutions. Building on the strong partnership between Sweden and Africa, I am confident that we can jointly find new ways forward to the benefit of us all. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. And before calling